Welcome, my friend, to the Keeper of the Home podcast. Today is really exciting. I have my first guest on this podcast. How's that make you feel, Mr. Tidbits?
Honored.
Good. Anyway, I brought on my husband, my dear sweet husband, Kevin, to discuss a fun topic with you that we often get asked about. And I want to explain, or I should say, we are going to talk about the reality of building our home, since that is something that we did, still doing, I guess. There's still a lot to do, especially on the outside, but that has been our journey for the past, 5 years. Now, if you're here today with us because maybe you've considered building your own home, I think you're definitely going to glean a lot of advice from us based on our experience. At least that's the hope. However, if you never plan on building your own home, have never built your own home, and this is not anything you're interested in, I challenge you to stay tuned, because I hope that we're going to wrap this up and it will serve as sort of I guess we could call it a parable for you with an experience that we've had that has many, many life lessons. So hopefully it's entertaining and that there are still nuggets of inspiration that you can take with you, even if you have no intention of building your own home. But because we do often get asked for advice or opinions, sometimes people even want to come and see our home that are interested in building a home or a pole barn home and ask us a whole slew of questions. So I decided it would just be a great idea to bring Kevin on here with me and discuss the reality, the good, the bad, the ugly, right, of building our own home. And I'm actually kind of doing a series on my blog and channel for the next month or so, really deep diving into every little thing. So I've already done a blog post and a video showing you a full home tour. So if you want to see what this home looks like, top to bottom, in and out, definitely check out that home tour video and blog post. But I've got more to come that will discuss some of the construction process, which you're going to help me write and create, right?
I guess I am.
Yes. And lots of information specifically about pole barn homes. So stay tuned for that, or check my blog and YouTube channel, Tidbits and Company, for all that information. Now, before I get Kevin chatting here, I have a little housekeeping to do, which is something we do on the Keeper of the Home podcast. First thing I want to share with you is the launch of my first line of merch. I am super excited about this. Right now we have available these darling Keeper of the Home sweaters, which if you're tuning in on YouTube for this podcast, you can see the sweater that I'm wearing today. I have 3 different logos and 6 different colors of these sweaters for you to choose from. My intent with making a sweater that says Keeper of the Home on it is that we can all wear it with great pride, and that those whom we serve in our homes, our communities, can see how much we honor and value our role as the Keeper of the Home. Really excited to have these sweaters for you. And one of these days we need to make a Guardian of the Home shirt. Would you like that? I think that would be a good thing. Anyway, so check out tidbitsandco.com for these sweaters and a lot of my other products that I have available for you. And then just make sure that you're signed up for my newsletter. I will leave a link to that sign up in the description, because every single week I not only share my new tidbits with you on my channel, podcast, blog, and I also send out a free weekly download of a vintage art piece that I find in the public domain, and I share that with you. It's a really fun thing for me to do. It's new every week, so make sure you're signed up to that so that you get that right in your email. Okay, Mr. Tidbits, you ready to talk?
Yeah, done with housekeeping, huh?
Yes, we're done with housekeeping. Okay, so I just have a list of questions that I'm going to bring up, and you can share your thoughts. And some of them I might have my own answers, but we'll just go through this list of questions that I have for you. So I don't do a very good job often at explaining what a pole barn home is. So let's start off with that. Can you tell them, what is a pole barn home?
Well, yeah, pole barn home, essentially it's in the name. It's built, the entire roof and the basic structure of the building is built upon poles that are just in the ground. So you don't do like a foundation. You can do a foundation. There's
What do you
so
mean by
many different
foundation?
ways.
Because I thought we had a foundation.
We don't have a foundation. Well, that's strip foundation. Let's be honest. A strip foundation is a solid, continuous foundation that goes around the whole house, and the whole house sits on it. A pole barn home, the whole house sits on the poles themselves. And those poles do have a little bit of a footing underneath them and some concrete around them to keep them from sinking into the ground. Ours had 24-inch footings underneath them. But that's it. Basically, the whole entire structure is sitting on these poles, and then when you fill in the walls, that's all just filler. It doesn't have any structural integrity to it. Other than maybe a little bit of seismic keeping the building from swaying, but that's about it. But 90% of the strength is in the poles in the ground.
So when you explained that, it made me feel like we just built a house with no foundation. But is it secure? Like
it's actually, there's a lot of opinions on that. In my opinion, it is stronger than a regular strip foundation. A strip foundation, you're hoping that concrete doesn't crack. You're hoping that that whole entire strip right there is going to support the house. Where in this house, there's only, 14 poles holding it up, and all of those are embedded in the ground, and it's pretty heavy-duty concrete down there, and they're all 6 feet down, or 5 feet down, 5 feet deep in the ground, and so it just, fewer places to fail. It's a lot stronger in my opinion, and it will move with the ground a little bit easier than a regular strip foundation home.
Which we're in earthquake county.
we may have cracking and stuff, but it won't come over. It won't fall over.
So we did a blog post when we started this whole thing talking about the cost. Was the cost the reason, or one of the big reasons, of why we did this?
That was a big part of it. It's also construction that I knew. I framed houses. I've done that part of it, but I was more intimately knowledgeable about pole barns. Yeah. I've helped build a few, and it was something that seemed simpler to me in my mind, and we were trying to save money. And it's super easy for a single guy to do. I mean, I was basically alone on most of it. I did get help on the roof because I'm scared to death of heights, but it was something like I figured I could handle myself instead of trying to do a stick-built home with a strip foundation. And
in this blog post, we did break down cost. Now, cost has changed a ton on construction since we started, but it still might be informative for you if you're curious about the cost of what we did there. Now, something that I keep hearing, it's like a buzzword. People are talking about barndos or barndominiums, and a lot of people have told me, "Oh, you built a barndominium." Do you know the difference between the pole barn home and the barndominium?
There isn't much of a difference. Barndominiums are typically made out of steel instead of wood. We have wood poles in the ground, whereas those will have a big concrete footing with a steel beam bolted to it. So basically the biggest difference is steel, but they do interchange them. If you built yours out of wood like we did, it's considered a barndominium. But more typically, if you're going to ask somebody about a barndominium, it's going to be a steel building.
I've also seen that barndominiums are usually actual barns they have converted into a home.
You can do that.
Yeah, that's my Google search. That's what the answers I was getting is usually that's someone being really creative about a previous structure, whereas a pole barn home is typically one that you're building in the same construction of a pole barn.
It'll be made out of wood. Pole barn's always made out of wood.
Gotcha. All right. Let's explain our situation that we put ourselves in before we started building or as we were building. Do you remember what that was like? What did we do?
I've tried to forget.
Oh. Well, then let me wrap it up. So we sold our home, which was the first home that I actually started my blog with, and moved into a rental. And then we bought an RV and fixed it up. Well, it was a fifth wheel, right?
Yeah, big fifth wheel.
Yeah, so we fixed that up and lived in that for quite a few months until it got cold. And then we skipped around to Airbnbs until this home was in a condition that was somewhat livable. Mm-hmm. It was not, by any stretch of the imagination, finished. But just to put some context of the rest of these questions, I wanted you guys to know that our life was complete chaos. It was not easy to live in an RV with 4 kids. A lot of challenges with that situation. And you had a full-time job, trying to do this at the same time. So when we think back to the actual building process, I don't know if we have too many fond memories. But I just want you guys to know that, because if you're in a more stable situation and this is something you want to tackle, you may have a more positive attitude than we may exude here today, because that was a challenging time of life, to say the least. Okay, Kevin, I want you to think back to before we even broke ground on this house. What did the Kevin of, 5 years ago believe this process would be like? What was your, preconceived notions you had about building a pole barn home?
I thought it'd be quicker, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be as hard as it was. But a lot of that had to do with outside influences. It wasn't really the actual building of the home. The building of the home was actually fairly straightforward. I mean, if we can get past all the contractors, but I thought it would be funner than it was. But there's a lot of things. It's hard to visualize a house from the beginning to the end, what it'll be like. Little things that you think, oh, I'm not going to worry about that. And then later on, I really wish I had done that. And
hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But I was looking forward to it. I was very excited about giving it a try, and
we were super hopeful, weren't we?
Oh yeah, it was.
We were going to save all sorts of money. This wasn't going to be expensive. It was, yeah. Then reality kind of.
You just don't clue in beforehand how difficult it is to work with contractors, and especially with city and county governments.
Oh yeah.
And utilities. All of them could care less about you.
It's true. I think back, the actual labor, it was a lot of labor intensive stuff, but the stress came from jumping all the hoops and trying to work with other people. And you were going to hire out more than you actually did. But we realized, maybe this is a topic for another question, but we realized, man, if you're going to get something done in the time frame you want it, you pretty much have to push up your sleeves and do it yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So how was your preconceived notions different from reality?
Well, you have a spreadsheet in front of you, and all the dates are listed, all the times are listed, the contractors say they'll be there then. Everything is lined up perfectly in a straight line. You're thinking, oh, it's going to go smooth. Everyone will be there when they say they're going to be there. They won't show up 2 months late, and they'll do it when they say they're going to do it, or even show up, period. That's the biggest preconceived notion I had, was everything was just going to go according to my spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet-oriented kind of person, and I love doing them, but that was the biggest preconceived notion, that the timeline was going to be what I thought it was.
But reality was?
It was nowhere near that. I was juggling around contractors. Some contractors did show up when they were saying they're going to be there, but the people that were supposed to be there before them didn't show up, and so it was a constant juggle. Because once you get out of that time bracket that contractor set for you, it's hard to get them back. And so, yeah, that's the biggest stress of the whole thing.
And I just want to clarify, you were the contractor, you didn't hire a general.
No.
You were in charge of the whole thing, trying to find other people to line up.
Yeah.
And honestly, from even talking to people that have built a home with a hired general contractor, I don't think this story is much different.
Yeah.
It can be a little more organized because they have their sources and their contractors prioritize them.
Yeah.
But
you are fighting against that.
But so I guess I would say that is one of the biggest challenges of building your own home, being your own general, is that, the people are not going to put you on the top of their list. If you need hired help, you're basically bottom of the totem pole. So that was a challenge.
Yeah. I would still highly recommend contracting yourself. If you think you can do it, there's so many ways to get answers to your questions. People are willing to help you out. I highly recommend contracting yourself. Hiring somebody else to do that. If you ask them to go to Home Depot and get a little filter screen or something, they'll charge you 5% more on top of it. And so they'll get their money out of you. And so for me, I like to do it myself, because things like that I can handle without having to deal with somebody else.
But it came with the downsides.
Yes, of course.
So yeah, you have to weigh what you want, and that's kind of the reality of it. Now we are going to work on a video detailing the construction process. So news to you, but that's the next one I want to put together for these folks. But take the construction process out and tell them about the reality of like your day-to-day process while trying to manage a full-time job, family, building a home. Like, what did that actually look like day to day?
Well, luckily for me, I was an engineer at the time, and I was working for a company that allowed me to work. I'd get to work at 6 in the morning, and I'd leave at 2 o'clock, and I wouldn't take lunch. I'd eat lunch at 2 when I got home. So I'd get to work at 6 a.m. I'd do that job and answer questions during the day for work. I mean, it was very difficult to try and focus on the job, I'll admit, but as possible. So I was able to work in my 8 hours that day, and then at 2 o'clock I would head straight to work, just straight to the house. Cammie would sometimes be here. She'd come visit me during the day, but I didn't see them at all. So getting up in the RV was lots of fun. I'm not a small person at all. So
we all knew when Dad was leaving.
And so I'd go out in my underwear and dress in the driveway, and then jump in the truck. And yeah, that was the hardest part, was leaving the family in those situations.
Yeah, we did not see you much.
It wasn't fun. So I go straight to work on the house, and I had a list in my mind, everything I needed to get done that day. And luckily I did have a lot of help. A lot of my the maintenance crew that I worked with at my job that I was over, they would come and help me in the afternoons when they got off work, and with the heavier lifting and stuff like that. But 90% of it was just getting out there, and so I had to get this done in that day. And so I would work until dark, even after dark sometimes,
then up
nonstop.
Again at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, I'd get home, and it was springtime during then, and so it was getting dark around 7, 8 o'clock. So I'd get home around 8 o'clock at night, eat dinner, go to bed, and rinse, wash, repeat.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And then I'd take Sundays off, of course, and we never did anything on Sundays, but Saturday was an all-day project. So that was kind of the day-to-day. If you're going to do it yourself, that's what it's going to require.
It's a huge sacrifice on everyone's part. You know, it was challenging for him to be working at that capacity for a long period of time, for months and months and months, and difficult for me to, you know, just be alone with the kids and to watch him be so stressed. That was my challenge, is, you know, aside from like bringing you food, there was not much I could do in taking care of the kids. So I felt a little helpless in helping him with his stress load, and also very taxed myself living in an RV with 4 children. So that was our experience. And wow, I don't know if I'd never do that again. Now that we bring it up, that was very difficult. So mentally and physically, I mean, there was that strain, but can you think of like a part of the construction that was the hardest, like the biggest hurdle that you feel like, I don't know, was just the most difficult thing to do?
I think by far the hardest thing was the actual framing of the house, because I did most of that myself. Like I said, I did have a few people come and help me when, you know, standing a 12-foot tall wall up wasn't the easiest thing to do. But the biggest part of that was by far the roof. I am deathly scared of heights. I'm getting better, but I do not like heights at all. And I have 2 brothers that they'll stand on top of one of these 6-inch poles like nothing and just
not strapped or anything. Yeah, they're insane.
So luckily they came, and in three days we built the roof and the roof on the house and the garage in 3 days. And they didn't. I was on the ground handing them tools. You know, we had a tractor that would lift up the boards and stuff, and I had already set the trusses all on ladders, so I'm not near scared in the ladder. But we were able to do that. But once we got past that hurdle, that was like the capstone, I guess you could say, of putting everything on top. And then it was just a simple matter of finishing the framing on the inside, and then getting the contractors in here to do the insulation and sheetrock. And that was, to me, the culmination of months and months and months of work.
Yeah, it was amazing how much that base work took compared to everything else. And then it was amazing how many years it took to finish the interiors. I think we burned ourselves out.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Next question. And you've already mentioned this a little bit, but what kind of hired help did you get? Just so that if someone wants to do this, they can realize maybe the best places where they need to put their money to hire extra help.
Gotcha. Well, I worked with I managed the maintenance department where I worked on top of my other duties, but I had an electrician there who came and helped me do the electrical. And then I had several other people there, and they had all been kind of involved in construction. They weren't by any means licensed or
professional.
Expert. Yeah, I was a lot of time I was telling them how to do stuff. But they were hard workers, and I knew them real well. And they came, and I paid them good. They came and they just did a little work here and there. I also had an intern that worked for me who would come and give me a hand in the afternoons.
You already mentioned family that came and helped.
Nephew and brothers.
But is there stuff like we hired out the sheetrock? Would you suggest that be hired out?
I don't do sheetrock. That's I'm terrible at it, and it's actually super cheap to have a crew come in, an experienced crew come in. They did this house in about 4 days.
Yeah,
they
a lot faster
hung all the
than if you
sheetrock,
would've did
and then they did. It took them 2 weeks total time, beginning to end. Tons faster than it would have taken me to do it, and I just don't know the tricks and. Yeah.
Or have the equipment, all the stilts and scaffolding.
And 12-foot ceilings. This is a big wall they had to do, and to make it straight. I mean, they did a great job. I'd highly recommend that.
You hired out HVAC.
HVAC.
Is that because it has to be a licensed HVAC?
The engineering has to be done but you may be able to get away with it yourself in some areas, but in our area, it has to be done by a licensed engineer. Engineered plans and everything.
Which we didn't sticky. Mention. So we kind of sketched out the floor plan and then took that to a licensed engineer to actually engineer the plans.
Yep.
So that's something you can do, or you can buy like kits or plans that have already been made for a pole barn home. Do you regret doing that? Do you think we could have bought a plan that was more thoughtful about the spaces and not added on later on, or do you think we did all right?
I think we did good with the space we have. I think we did a really good job of organizing it. I had a 3D printer at work. I did a 3D model of the house so we could see what it was going to look like before the end. But I think that's the way to. If you really are passionate about making it your home, I would recommend just have an engineered. It was $700 to have it engineered. It wasn't a big deal
back then. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, but I mean, there are a lot of things we do regret, which we'll talk about. But we have a unique home. Like, there is no home like this. And whenever anyone walks in, we often hear that. So for better or worse, we have a unique home. Okay, let's give them an idea of money. In this building process, we were trying to pinch pennies, trying to do this as affordably as possible, but were there some things that really shocked you? And don't bring up the front door. I know I bought the most expensive front door, but it's amazing. Okay,
yes,
but aside from my design decisions, please. In the construction process, was there one thing that was I did not expect that to take this much of the budget, that really shocked you? I think that'd be helpful for them to hear.
Well, there's two things that really stuck out to me, and you may not have this issue in your area. The power, unfortunately, the power line going by our house was installed by the city to power the new city, the well the water tank they have up above us. And the way that was organized with Rocky Mountain is that if anybody connected to that power in the next 5 years or 10 years, it might have been, they would have to help pay a portion of that initial cost. I didn't know that. They won't talk to you until you have a building permit.
Yeah, until you're already too thick in.
There's so many. Yeah, there's a lot of contractors that won't even give you a bid until you have a building permit. So that ended up. They came and they wanted almost $30,000 they wanted
Which
to hook
hurt.
To the power.
We did not plan for that.
I was planning on $5,000.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do some negotiating. I sold them a little strip of land out there along the road for an easement, I guess, so that they could widen the road. And that brought it down to $20,000, but it was still way more than it should have been.
And we really needed every penny that we'd planned for. So that is almost why I think we had to move in so unfinished. We just did not have. We didn't want to go into further debt. We didn't want to borrow any money. We were out of resources, so we just had to move in as it was, and then slowly tried to build it up and finish it. So, power. Anything else?
A well. Be careful on building a well, because when they dig a well, you pay them per foot whether they hit water or not. And so every day I'd go out there, and he was one that showed up like 3 months late. I had so much going on that I needed water for, didn't have water, but that's a whole different story. But he would show up for a day and he would sink 100 feet into the ground.
And then go home.
And then go home for 2 weeks and come back, and I don't know what his do. But anyways, but every time he goes there and he sinks a foot, it cost me, what, $80 a foot? And so you're paying that whether you hit water or not. And so you're kind of at a point like, oh, do we keep going deeper and try to hit water, or do we stop and give him all this money for nothing? And so it's kind of a no-win situation. But unfortunately, we did have to go really deep for water. We were 300 feet deep.
Then we hit iron.
Yeah, it wasn't the
irony
best
water. So then
I told him to stop. We're only at like 15, 20 gallons per minute, which is okay. But if I had built 1,000 feet to the north, I would have hit water at 200 feet and plenty of it, because everyone does over there. We thought we'd do that over here, but water's a tricky situation.
But it can be an expense you're not expecting.
And so it's just a gamble. It ended up costing, a lot more than we anticipated. And so that was one big cost that it was almost 3 times what I had budgeted for.
Okay, we talked about money. Give them a quick idea of how much time it took you from starting to when we moved in.
We started in May, in the wettest spring on record.
Yeah. Just our luck.
That was when we prepared the ground, dug it all, made it flat. So muddy. And then we moved in November. Now, moving in wasn't done house. It wasn't completed yet. I had plywood on the countertops.
Contact paper stapled on. Half the house was still concrete floors. Mm-hmm. No shelving organization. One bathroom. It was rough. But so from May to November, how many months is that? 6?
Yeah.
Okay, so about
5 or 6.
5 or 6 months till move in, and then another 3-4 years to actually finish the interior.
But that was pretty slow. We weren't moving very fast.
Yeah, we were slow.
I would come home on the floor. I'd just do 1 room a night.
Yeah, it was slow, but I mean, we were just working as time and money would allow, which is what I've often told you guys. But it's done.
Yeah.
All right. So regrets. Any regrets for the building process? Any of the design things we did? Do you regret the whole entire thing?
I think I have 2 major regrets. The one is the location of the house. I wish we had put it in one of the flatter parts of the property, because the retaining walls behind and in front ended up costing $30,000, give or take.
Which we had limited vision on that. We wanted this beautiful view on our porch, which we have, but we didn't realize what that view would cost in landscaping. So, yeah, that's a little painful.
Yeah,
Good
that's
point.
a sticker shock there.
Yeah.
Another thing is I would have connected the house and the garage. We have them separated, and right now snow builds up and rain and everything right there in between. And so I wish we had connected the 2.
That could have got me a bigger office, a bigger bedroom, or bigger garage. Yeah, now, why did we do a detached garage? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I don't remember why either. I think it just...
Things you just don't think about.
I don't know, but I regret that one too.
At least have some sort of a covering between here and there would have been at least.
And maybe that's something we can still add, but that means tearing down walls we've finished, and more money, more time. Something recently, we went to a sister-in-law's wedding in a house that had like these giant windows and this beautiful view. I mean, we have an incredible view at our front porch, but we didn't put the window there that really maximized that. I mean, there's still a big window, but I would have done a window with no grids, just clear glass, made it as big as possible to like really enjoy that view from the inside. I regret that one.
Definitely.
I kind of regret the RV situation we put ourselves in. It made like a difficult situation even more difficult. If we could have, now it made us money. We saved money on rent. We parked it at my mom's house.
Made money in the end.
We sold it because we fixed it up so nice and made money. So, I mean, it did what it needed to do, but it truly made a difficult situation 10 times more difficult. And I think it's because like things went slower, and I've always told people if they plan on moving into an RV, you have a set end date. And know how long you're going to have to endure that, because if it keeps getting pushed off, mentally it becomes very difficult. And if you're building a home, there's not going to be a set end date. They're going to give you an end date. You're going to think you're going to meet that deadline, and then it will be pushed further. So make sure that when you're in the thick of this, that you make your living situation as convenient and comfortable as possible. Mm-hmm. So I do regret that a little bit. We maybe should have just stayed in the rental home, even though that would have pushed us more financially. But
and one thing I do regret, the more I think about it, is we should have gone 9-foot ceilings in a 2-story.
Oh yes,
because that would have doubled our house, our square footage, even if we didn't finish it. I just would have put the trusses in.
We didn't do the upstairs because we were worried, we can't add more money to this.
But I could have done it without finishing it and built the trusses designed for that. It wouldn't have cost hardly anything more.
Yeah.
And this house is so echoey, because you could drop a pin in this and hear it in any bedroom.
You guys are probably hearing this on the sound. It may not be as good because of these tall ceilings, but I had asked so many people, should we keep the 12-foot ceilings? Are 12-foot ceilings great? And everyone just told me, oh, it's just amazing. And go as tall as you possibly can. I have since changed my mind on that drastically. I think 10-foot ceilings are nice, but the 12 feet, it echoes. When you get a lot of kids here that are rambunctious, it's super loud. And it just doesn't feel cozy. I am craving more of a cozy, not so open floor concept. After living here, that is something that's really surprised me that I would rather want. But, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not leave him with negative thoughts, though, okay? So, positive note, what has been really great about building our own home, in your perspective? He's speechless.
What's been good? Might take a while. No, I think the best part about building this house is first of all, it's ours. I built this, and it's something that I did with my own hands. I can be proud of that. I do take great pride in that we were able to build this and conquer all of those many obstacles, and it is a sense of accomplishment in the end. Another thing is I know where every screw is. I know where every water line goes, where every power line is. I know everything about this house. And I can point to pretty much, if you have a question of where something is, I can point to it in the building. And so, hearing sounds or hearing something going on, I know exactly what it is. Where you go into a house where you don't know what's in the walls, you don't know what's going on, where things are at. I take a lot of comfort in knowing where stuff is and how to fix it. And it's like, if I want to add a room here, I just do this, and there I can do this. Or if I want to add an outlet, I can easily, think it through and add a sink into a pantry. I can know right where the drainage needs to go. There's a lot of benefits to that, in my opinion.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to the regrets because I forgot a big one, but hopefully it helps see. We both kind of regret, we built this thinking this was going to be a temporary home, that someday we were going to be able to build like a dream home. This was just something like build a pole barn, live in it until you can build your dream home. Unfortunately, it still costs quite a bit. And now we're in a position like if we can't fathom, financially building another home. We would love it, but, even if we rented this one out or did whatever with it, I don't foresee that being a possibility for a very long time. And so I wish we would have just spent the resources, maybe lived even longer with an unfinished home, but just built an actual home in the first place instead of a pole barn. Should I even go there? Should I tell you guys that? I kind of regret building a pole barn. I mean, it's been great, but part of me just wishes we would have just did the home that we wanted in the first place. Do you agree?
I don't know if I agree with the pole barn, because you can build a pole barn to look like any house. It's amazing what they can do. It's just a style of construction. And so it doesn't have to be a rectangular barn. We could have built any shape.
It's true.
It could have had a basement. I mean, but yes, I agree. We should have built a home that was more for built for us.
Yeah, that we could grow into, because we find ourselves, with teenagers, and when they have friends over, there's not a hangout space. There's bare minimum here for us. It's still comfortable, but yeah, we're here for the foreseeable future, and it's all we got. But that's okay. Love grows best in little houses, is what I keep telling myself. All right, so for those of you who have absolutely no interest in building a home, I would like to end with some takeaway lessons for you that hopefully you can apply in any situation that you find yourself in. So I'll share some of my life lessons here, Kev, and then you can input any that you feel that you've learned. But as Kevin always says, how do you eat an elephant? To our kids when they're struggling with a big project, a big assignment in our homeschool, or whatever it may be. And how do you eat an elephant? How do you accomplish something that is so massive, like building a home by yourself? And that is just one bite at a time. And I think that helped us through it. It's like, we know that there's so much on your spreadsheet to do, but right now, focus on the one thing you have to do so that you don't get overwhelmed.
And in the process, I tell the kids, it was kind of, it was a spiritual process for me at the same time, because there were many times building the house I was just flipping out because a contractor wasn't showing up, or something was being delayed, and it was,
you were stretched to your max.
Yes, but then looking back, I said, okay, that delay happened for a reason, because if I hadn't delayed on that, this wouldn't have been able to happen in time, and it didn't. It just seemed like in the end, everything happened for a reason. And I really was able to see where my Heavenly Father was kind of directing things a little bit.
He was the real general.
I was the one fighting and kicking and screaming, and realizing in the end, everything happened for a reason. Everything was in the right place when it needed to happen. And so I had a lot to be grateful for in the end. And so,
and I felt strengthened, at times when I just felt so discouraged, watching you be discouraged and feeling alone and raising children in a difficult situation. I'm amazed in hindsight that I made it through that. That I was strengthened by our Father in heaven, and we got through it and learned a lot about our relationship with Him in the midst of it. So whatever struggle you're going through, I think that's a great life lesson, that it'll work out. And when you come through to the other end, you will see how it was all part of your growing experience. So something else that you can learn by our experience is that even though something is going to be difficult, and you may even get things way wrong. Say you're given a task, or there's a task before you, and you know that you may actually fail, or it may be difficult, or someone else could do it better. I really don't think you should let that stop you from trying, because, like we already mentioned, there's going to be this learning experience that you're going to come out with that couldn't have been taught to you in any other way. And so even though difficulty and failure are staring you in the face, don't let that be the reason you're not going to try or to build it anyway. Because I think it's all valuable in this one life that we get to live, and it's going to maybe serve you in the future as you learn some things that you'll need to know, or just serve you right then as you see how you can overcome these things in spite of the obstacles.
Find a way to enjoy the journey, is what I would say.
That's a good one.
Because it's very difficult, very stressful. If you stress about these things, some people I know don't even care, but if you're in a situation where, like, we were in a huge hurry to get out of that RV and that Airbnb, so it was just a massive speed race. But if you don't have timelines, enjoy it. It can be fun. There was parts of it that we enjoyed, seeing the process grow. And,
oh yeah, it was really rewarding.
Yeah, I enjoyed building it, but just find joy in it.
Yeah,
it is fun.
That kind of follows up with the other thing I wanted to share, especially for my homemakers here. We all have homes that maybe are not our ideal or our dream home. Let us just learn to be content with the process and patient in the waiting, and just make the most of every situation that God has placed us in. And like Kevin said, there can be so much joy in just putting our hands to work. I've seen a lot of studies about the actual things that go on in our brain and the reward that we get when we actually build something with our own two hands. And that hand to mind connection is really strong. In fact, there's a scripture in Ephesians that I found that said, "Let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth." And I love that because for me, this whole experience of building a home has not only blessed our family, but I hope that it's also blessing you as you learn from us and seeing what we do and see what kind of options are out there for you. But I don't know of any situation where you labor with your own hands and it doesn't come out beneficial in the end for you. So something for you to think about. Is there any other life lesson that you want to share with our friends?
Don't build a house?
Yeah.
No, I recommend doing it at least once.
Hey,
it won't turn out the way you think it will. I promise you that. It never does.
Well, life just doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we make plans and I feel like the heavens giggle at us a little bit.
Yeah, and so just enjoy it. Do it 3 times, I say, because the third house would be perfect, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, so in relating that to any life situation, don't, just because you fail at something or it doesn't turn out as good as you'd hoped, try it again and again. And I think in the end, we get it down. Anyway, that wraps up this podcast episode. My friends, thank you so much for joining us. Kevin, thank you for jumping on here with me. I think that's really valuable. And if you guys know of any other topic that you think he needs to be on here with me for, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you learned. Maybe you found a little nugget of truth in our experience that we didn't pick up on. I would love for you to share that in the comments below. Let's chat, learn from each other. Thanks again for joining me. And I, or maybe we, will be back very soon to share more inspiration for the keeper of the home.